Welcome back to the Grand Solar. Alright, well, it looks like we had an audio issue there. I do apologize. Welcome to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today's Friday, October 4th, 2019. Taking a look at some space weather before we get into some articles tonight. Our solar wind speeds are sitting at 401.4 kilometers per second with a density of 3.6. That active region that was AR 2749 is now no longer a sunspot, although it is a bright region, and in our star, it is still not qualified as a sunspot according to NOAA and SPACEWEATHER.com. This starts a new streak now, 1 day without sunspots, and that's now 200 for the 2019. 200 days without sunspots. KP is at 1 right now. The 24-hour max is at a 3. And let's take a look at the SDO in motion, where we are looking at some smaller coronal holes that might affect the far southern region of our magnetic field. There are the active regions that we were speaking of. And let's take a look at what we see beyond right now. Let's go over to the grandsolarminimum.com, our website. And there we have our 3 active regions that are trailing this once sunspot, and they show up pretty clear, but right now at this point it's nothing that would qualify them to be sunspots. And after we get past the eastern limb, it looks pretty quiet once again. So we'll watch these active regions that are slightly elevated at the time, but until then we are without sunspots according to NOAA, SPACEWEATHER.com. We can confirm on those websites that this is not being qualified as a sunspot. And like I reported in my morning report, there were some folks that didn't believe that it should have been counted as a sunspot in the first place. So take a look at our TSI report if we can. The numbers came in for September. Oh, that's not far enough. I'm gonna move this over. Bear with me, folks. There we are. No, that's still not it. All right, so let me refresh this real quick, because that is not the area I wanted to look at this time. For TSI data, the latest should be after the, let's see, the 29th of September is when the last reading we should have here. So yeah, the 26th. It's coming in at 1360.667 is the TSI for the 26th of September. Let's go ahead and check it out one more time. Yeah, so 1360.667 was our TSI reading for September 26, 2019. Again, it's not really changing that much right now. In fact, if you zoom out a little bit, you can see how it had a more defined wavy back and forth. And let's go back here to May, and watch how during the winter months, TSI was kind of flatline, a little bit wavy in February, but after we hit past March, we saw more of a wavier pattern. And recently, we have seen that TSI pattern just kind of level off, where it's not as wavy as we have seen it in the past. So just something to continue to monitor as we continue to roll into this grand solar minimum. As solar cycle 25 begins, so will the grand solar minimum. All right, let's go back to thegrandssolarminimum.com. Another snowstorm on the way, and what caused global confusion on the UAH. And before I even get into my articles tonight, special shout out to Roy Spencer and John Christie for, being speculative on this, questioning the numbers as they should have, and then not only confirming the numbers as the readings were accurate, but explaining why. So we'll get into that here in a little bit, but let's start here at the watchers. Heavy rain and flash floods strike northwestern Pakistan, killing 8. At least 8 fatalities were reported after heavy rain triggered flash floods in northwestern Pakistan on September 30th, 2019. The other people that were killed, 5 of the victims actually died after buildings collapsed in separate incidents. The other 3 were children who were swept away by floods. The victims were identified as grandchildren of a local person by the name of Shurim. Residents offered help to search for the bodies, and as of current reports, only 2 have been retrieved. Search operations are still ongoing for the last victim. 3 people were also reportedly injured in the Swabi district after a roof collapsed. In Majar district, 2 residential areas were destroyed by floodwaters. No casualties were reported. In Bahrain, heavy rains triggered landslides that blocked the road. Crops were also badly affected. The Pakistan Meteorological Department said more heavy rain is expected in the following days, while hailstorm is also predicted to hit other regions as well here in Pakistan. And here is some of the messages on Twitter. From July to September 2019, more than 230 people have died and 180 others were injured in rain-related incidences, according to the National Disaster Management Authority. And thank you, watchers, for the article. And we have talked about this region quite a bit, especially since the midsummer. All right, so they got weather to deal with, and this earthquake, this is kind of a follow-up story here, but this earthquake happened in September 24th, 2019. More than 71 homes and 200 vehicles were destroyed after a 5.9 earthquake hit Pakistan, 11:01 UTC on September 24th, 2019. The incident took lives of at least 40 people, while 1,600 others suffered injuries. The quake struck the shallow depth of 6 miles, with the epicenter lying about 0.6 miles southeast of Mirpur and Azad, Jammu and Kashmir. And I remember when we, I think we did the show the night this came out, but just looking at the road damage and a lot of people thinking, wow, that 5.9 did that? Impressive damage for 5.9. Around 9,000 households have been effectively hit by the catastrophic event. Out of the 7,100 ravaged homes, 1,000 in Mirpur was solely. Number of deaths, injuries, and affected families is feared to rise as in the following days because reports are still being conducted. Authorities have declared emergency in all hospitals of Mirpur. At first, aid team was deployed to the affected areas, including 9 doctors and 3 paramedics, with 3 ambulances and 200 medicines and surgical kits. And you guys can finish off there. I just wanted to give a report here of what's happening in Pakistan. Not only are they being affected by heavy rains and flooding, but they're getting a double dose of grand solar minimum conditions. The increase of cosmic rays causing these floods, and also cosmic rays playing a double whammy on us because they are apparently, according to many research papers that we've reviewed, that cosmic rays have a lot to do with volcano eruptions and earthquakes as well. So unfortunately, Pakistan is getting the worst of both worlds on this one. And speaking of seismicity, intense activity continues at Popo in Mexico. Intense activity continues with 14 explosions on the 2nd of October and 2 yesterday. In 24 hours, 1600 UTC on October 3rd, 177 exhalations were detected, accompanied by steam, gas, and ash, as well as 7 hours of tremor and 1 tectonic earthquake with a magnitude of 2.4. In addition, 2 explosions were recorded today at 4:46 and 6:27 local time. The first explosion was around 6,500 feet. The second one was about 3,300 feet. So these were minor eruptions, nothing crazy, but just alerting us of the activity that we have seen recently from Popo. Here is a quick look from yesterday. So it's being reported that they want people to stay away from the volcano, especially the crater. They can expect activity to continue, and there's no reason to believe that this is going to stop anytime soon. It also mentions the last time we seen 2 major explosions with 209 exhalations was on August 13th of 2019. Where we had an ash plume of 23,000 feet. And this is from a September 27th explosion. Nothing amazing there. Anyway, you guys can check this out on watchers.news. They always have fantastic coverage of worldwide earthquakes, volcanoes, extreme weather, you name it, they are covering it. All right, let's keep moving here. Unfortunately, another article that talks about over 4,000 people displaced, 6 killed, and widespread floods hit Senegal. It says here, widespread floods affected nearly 9,000 people in Senegal over the past 20 days. 4,500 were displaced, and 6 were killed, and almost 50 were injured. Extensive damage was reported, and many regions of this Senegal area, Dakar region, Kaolack department, and the Kaolack region. The rain started on the 10th of September and continued through the 17th, but by the 15th and 16th, the accumulated floodwaters started causing widespread flooding in Dakar, Kaolack regions. The flooding has led to widespread destruction over livelihoods as farm fields have been washed away. Another report of more crop damage from floods. And so, this is kind of the concern as we move deeper into this minimum 2020, 2021, that winter into spring. This is only the beginning. It's going to get worse. We're reading a lot about widespread crop loss. And, maybe a few thousand acres here, a few thousand acres there, or maybe a few million acres in some cases. But still, definitely I've noticed, just from reporting on this, I've noticed an increase of reporting of crop damage from flash flooding, heavy rain in a short period of time. About 4,500 people are still displaced in both affected regions, are most vulnerable at this time. That's 500 households, or 50.4% of all affected people right now. The most affected people are women, children, and elderly, and people with disabilities who are now being sheltered in schools with limited access to essential services. The most urgent needs are water, hygiene, and sanitation. Risk of waterborne diseases like malaria, diarrhea are also high due to limited access to drinking water and sanitation, as well as appropriate sanitation facilities. The flood-affected areas are particularly prone to malaria and other waterborne diseases since populations cohabit with sewage and stagnant water that have been there since the previous years. Displaced people are accommodated in temporary collective shelters such as schools, as well as unfinished houses, while the duration of the displacement situation is unknown based on continuation of the rains. Our thoughts and prayers go out to these folks. I can't imagine sitting in limbo in a shelter with limited essentials, not knowing when you can begin the repair, the recovery, because everything's based on when these intense rains are going to stop. Again, thanks again to Watchers.news. 9 dead as Typhoon Matag slams in South Korea. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Tonight there was a lot of gloom and doom on Watchers, but it's the truth. At least 9 people have died, while several others are still missing after Typhoon Matag hit southern and eastern regions of South Korea on October 3rd. The storm made a landfall in Hanim. I think that's Haeunam, maybe it's Haeunam on October 2nd, with torrential rains spawning strong winds that moved across the south and southeast of the country. Over 1,500 people were evacuated from these areas. According to reports, 4 inches of rain fell per hour. Okay, 4 inches of rain fell per hour. Jeez. Which made it the highest since 1971 when authorities began recording. South Korean news agent, I just started reading this stat here, guys. 4 inches per hour. I'm going to take a wild stab at why I believe we're seeing 4 inches of rain an hour. And it's right here over on SPACEWEATHER.com. This is the neutron counts for cosmic rays. The record is in December of 2009. The last minimum that we had was 11 plus 11.7%. All right. Right now we are at 9.7%, and we're still not at the so-called bottom of the minimum just yet. So we are almost near record level cosmic ray activity. As you can see here, this is a new chart that SPACEWEATHER.com is going to continue to monitor this actual phenomena as long as they can, obviously. But we're expected to smash the record from 2009. So when I see constant stories and reports where an area got 4 inches of rain in an hour, and the way that this is labeled is that, it's 4 inches of rainfall per hour was recorded, meaning that this was a multiple hour event, and they were receiving 4 inches each hour. It's not clear on how many hours this went on for. But just, when I see stats like that, it makes me think of this right here, cosmic rays. So I'm glad we're monitoring these. SpaceWeather.com is one of my favorite resource pages, because everything that they cover here is super important to what we do here at this channel, and the rest of you should actually have to follow as well. So this is a site we highly recommend. We always rely on this. Dr. Tony Phillips never steers wrong yet. So check it out here. More stats on this storm. Unfortunately, like I said, this is like the 3rd or 4th storm we reported on that has killed people because of flooding. Thankfully, the death toll is usually below double digits in some cases, but still lots of flooding, lots of people displaced, and lots of people injured. And lots of people who are scared right now and wondering how long are they going to be displaced. Again, our thoughts and prayers are with these folks around the world who are suffering during this particular time. All right, remnants of Hurricane Lorenzo hit Ireland and UK. Well, I've seen on Twitter from many people that this was just a light breezy day, if anything. Not much of a storm impact as some thought it might have been. Thousands have been left without power, though, in Ireland after the remnants of former Category 5 hurricane hit overnight Thursday. Warnings stayed in place across 11 Irish counties until late Friday morning as winds up to 34 miles per hour and gusts of 64 were in the forecast. Windy conditions also reached further east in southwest England and southern and western Wales. The post-tropical cyclone hurricane, formerly known as Lorenzo, is set to bring more unsettled conditions in the UK throughout the weekend, according to the Met Office. And I also, we picked this up as well on the GFS, how it just felt like that Lorenzo was the gateway weather maker here, because after Lorenzo, we just seem to see system after system pummeling the UK and Europe. I shouldn't say pummeling, but will be affected with a decent amount of rain. It has issued a yellow weather warning for much of eastern Britain on Sunday, as heavy rain is expected to cause flooding and potential travel disruptions. The poor weather comes after Hurricane Lorenzo swept past the Azores Islands in the Atlantic earlier this week, bringing strong winds and causing life-threatening surf conditions. Actually, we were hearing reports of 62-foot waves. Some other channels were saying possible 71-foot wave. It also saw trees knocked over, power outages. The hurricane was a Category 1 storm when it hit the Azores, broke records last week after briefly strengthening to a Cat 5, the strongest ever this far north and east in the Atlantic. And of course, the Met are issuing their warnings. So really, I wanted to give you an update, totals and stuff like that. This storm was nowhere the storm that some thought it was going to be, very minor. Some folks laughed at everyone who was trying to make a deal about this. It was nothing more than just a usual storm, from what some of the folks I've seen on Twitter. I could be wrong, but this article doesn't seem to think that the area was affected too much, just some wind and rain. And but there is still a yellow weather alert out for the weekend. Like I said, I'll show you guys in the GFS where there's more rain on the way for you guys. But record Antarctic stratospheric warming causes September 2019 global temperatures update confusion. So the day that Roy Spencer came out with his report of the temperatures, and man, I gotta give it to my producer, my life partner here, Mari. Well, she's paying attention, folks. That's all I gotta say. But the first thing that came out of her mouth when I told her that we were at 0.61 Celsius above baseline, the first thing that came out of her mouth was it the SSW over Antarctica? And I thought, I don't know, We have those in the Arctic. We've had them last year in the wintertime. And, didn't really do this to the winter temperature, so I didn't know. But, like I said, Mari is paying attention for sure. Roy and John Christie here work together. And John did some work on this number, found out that all the values were accurate. And then Roy gives it a blame it on Antarctica. Some of you might have seen the news report several weeks ago that a strong SSW event was expected to form over Antarctica, potentially impacting the weather in Australia. He goes on to say these SSW events are more frequent over the Arctic and occur in winter, but when put very simply, winds in the stratosphere flow inward and force air within the cold circumpolar vortex to sink. That's called subsidence. Since the stratosphere is statistically stable, its temperature elapse rate is nearly isothermal. Any sinking leads to a strong temperature increase. All right. So makes a lot of sense, right? And if you know anything about atmospheric pressure, you'll know that when you have a sudden warming, you're pushing cooler temperatures elsewhere as well. But in this situation, this is what caught my eye about the whole SSW reason why it could have caused the temperature that we saw for September. Check this out. The following plot of both Arctic and Antarctic UAH-LS temperatures anomaly shows just how strong that September SSW event was, with a 13.7 degree Celsius anomaly average over the area poleward of 60 degrees south latitude, The LS product covers the layer from about 15 to 20 kilometers altitude. So that is a very, very, very strong anomaly there as far as these sudden stratospheric warming events have happened. And here's a graph of showing you the ones previously in the past. Dating back to 1979, we've never seen this event before, period. Some of you can say that this is now trending. This to me is just that, an anomaly with that freak of a high temperature. And you see the previous pattern here. In fact, before this event, we were looking at a decline, and then this freak off the charts anomaly happens. It could mean things could start going back up, sure, but according to this, since 1979, we've never seen anything like this. We would have thought here in this region around 2003 that was a peak. So this is off the charts. And after further review, the play stands as called 0.61 above baseline Celsius for the UAH. So again, I really appreciate John and Roy for their honesty. They questioned the science, they did the work, and they found the results to be accurate and true, and pointed out what we saw in Antarctica, which is super rare, by the way, folks. We don't get those kind of events that far, and not on that side of the planet. And not only that, have we ever seen such an anomalous high temperature? Now, I'm sure there's some people out there who will tell you that's a flag for, global warming on the rise again. The sun's turned back on. I'm sure of it. But nonetheless, we've seen a couple different charts. We saw the AMO also matching the peak of the UAHA temperatures. And when you see this high 13.7 degrees above baseline spike, wow. I mean, that is a hell of an event. And I'm really, really, really curious to look back in time to see if we've ever seen a spike like that, and what was the result, what followed that, like what effects did that have on the climate. Very, very curious to look more into that as we continue. But I gotta give credit where credit's due. Mari immediately, as soon as we talked about, hey, Roy Spencer says we went up 0.61, the first thing that came out of Mari's mouth was, that SSW in Antarctica, and she was right. When it was interesting when I found out that Roy and John were actually looking at this into further view, you know what I mean? Like, taking a look at it again and seeing if there's a mistake. And they redid the work, it came out correct, and they told us why, and that's what we need in this community, is explanations and transparency. When you question a person who supports the AGW side of this, when you start asking for evidence or proof of their science, it turns into politics and arguments, because they can't debunk these correlations, but they wait for these anomalies to happen and say, oh, that's it, it's global warming, you guys are wrong, eggs on your face. But all I gotta say to that is, calm down, take it easy. I hope you're right. I hope some weird freak thing happened to the sun and we're not going to get global cooling, and we're not going to have crop loss, and we're not going to have food hikes, and we're not going to have, maybe people dying from the weather changing too fast, or, storms that continue to kill people because the sun's magnetic field is weak and a lot of cosmic rays are invading our atmosphere, which is causing more lightning strikes. I mean, how many articles have we talked about people getting struck by lightning at regular things? Golf courses even more so. I mean, they've always had a past history, but I've heard people riding their motorcycles. 2 people died in Florida from being struck by lightning just by driving in a thunderstorm. They were trying to get home. So AccuWeather thinks that we might have a chance for some more snow. This is Tuesday into Thursday of next week. Right now, major highways that could be adversely affected by the storm is Interstate 15, I-25, I-90, and 94, as well as Canada highways 1, 2, and 3. The storm will bring enough cold air with it to produce some snow accumulations on roads, not only in higher elevations, but farther east. Icy conditions may develop in the wake of the storm as wet areas freeze up. The storm is the first forecast to bring areas of rain, snow, and wintry mix to a part of Alaska this weekend before it moves into impact parts of Canada and the contiguous U.S. Snow may cover the ground around Fairbanks, while around an inch or 2 of snow may fall in Anchorage. So there's a little news splash there for you for folks in Alaska. During the first part of next week, the storm will spread rain and locally heavy mountain snow southeastward through BC and southwestern Alberta. Calgary could be on the receiving end of 3 to 6 inches of snow. Next stop for the storm will be the Northern Rockies and the High Plains for the United States from late Monday night into Wednesday. The exact track of the storm as it plunges into the U.S. will determine the north to south extent of the snow. While fast movement of this storm compared to that of a September snowstorm will limit the amount and duration of snowfall, a few inches to a foot of snow can fall. So, we had record-breaking snow in September. We are looking at a possible several inches to a foot possible in some areas, again in Montana. Still, early snow happening in the early part of autumn. Already, we are starting to see signs of an early winter in parts of the United States, just like we were seeing signs of an early winter in parts of Australia and New South Wales. It was showing up, spring snow. Or I should say autumn snow for them. It was spring for us. Also, severe potential for late next week, flash flooding, severe thunderstorms, gusty winds. A cold shot will follow, and this is where everyone will feel the effects of fall weather after this point. Actually, we'll go ahead and take a look at the GFS report here to get a better, I think I might be, yeah, that's about it. No, really, great job again from Mari, though, on the whole SSW. She was, I mean, immediately called it. And while she was calling it, she's like, I need to get her a cape, because that was the same day she was designing these wonderful beanies as well. So, guys, check out, get you one fresh off the presses. I want one. I want the gray and black one, the beanie with the little poofy, the air carbon poof ball on top of it. That looks sweet. And the GSM mug, by the way, it's black, but when you pour coffee in it, it turns white. I know, not that big of a deal, but it's still kind of cool. And don't forget 15% off on all of our Teespring t-shirts. Let's get into some GFS. This is a current look at our map right now. You can see some heavy thunderstorms and showers across the deep south in Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana. Parts of Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, and Missouri, Arkansas also are seeing some thunderstorm action. And let's not forget New Mexico. Please support our Patreon channel. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, we are doing another call-in show. Mari and I might actually even broadcast it on the YouTube show. That way you guys can kind of get a preview of what's going on, what kind of conversations we're having. And all it takes is $1, folks. Joining Patreon for $1 gives you access to the call-in shows on Saturday, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. And the more members we get, the longer we'll do these call-in shows as well. Right now, they're pretty much open topic. You can talk about what you're doing for prep. You can talk about what you grow. You can talk about what kind of livestock you have. Anything related to grand solar minimum and climate is more than welcome to be debated or spoken about. Even if you don't believe in grand solar minimum, as long as you are polite and come with facts and evidence. I mean, we're not going to censor you. We're just going to try to help you understand the big scheme and the big tax scam and the cash grab that's behind this flawed theory. The real science, unfortunately, folks, does lie over here. You just have to work for it and read, and that's really it. There's nothing handed to any of us that follow this topic. Every one of you that is in this chat right now has spent a lot of time trying to digest what this is all about. There's so many different things about grand solar minimum. It's just, you can't cover it all in an hour. You definitely couldn't cover it all in a half hour either. So, I mean, you just have to take it in small chunks and try to digest it. I know that presentation on the IPCC and the carbon tax credits and all that stuff, I watched that 3 or 4 times. I really wanted to understand. And after I was done, I was like, I just can't believe this. I mean, this is worse than any conspiracy theory I have ever heard of, but it makes sense. Anyway, let's take a look at our GFS outlook here, folks. Some storms coming in through the northern plains over the weekend. Sunday, the Midwest starts getting wet once again. Southeast Ohio is going to get the brunt of this. Dayton, Cincinnati, you might get a little bit of action, but not as heavy as the Southeast will see. And this will continue to move through the East Coast to the Northeast. High pressure moves in. There's that snow they're looking at next week, the 3 to 6 inches of snow in certain parts. Again, the heavier side of the snow is going to be in BC and Alberta and other parts of Canada, Manitoba also as well, looking at some snow and icy conditions. But look at this, Thursday, October 10th, South Dakota and North Dakota. As of right now, we are looking at probably a 3 to 6 event as well in your state, as this storm is going to track across the northern plains, bringing colder air with it, as this gigantic low pressure system barrels through the Midwest into the east and the northeast by next Saturday. So a pretty big system set to move through the United States. High pressure will try to settle in and keep things calm for a day or two, and it lasts through Monday, going into Monday night into Tuesday, where that high pressure system is finally moving off to the northeast, allowing tropical moisture to flow in through Florida on the 16th, and a little disturbance here off of the coast of South Carolina and Georgia. Meanwhile, in the northwest, more rain and snow to the areas of Montana, Wyoming, Idaho as well. Lots of moisture coming in from the tropics and the Gulf. And another massive low pressure system that's floating across the United States towards the middle of this month. And this is set to bring a pretty decent cold front. Boy, oh boy, it's not a hurricane, but this looks like a gigantic nor'easter. And I will have to look at something really quick. On the 19th, we do have it. This is hard to see it, but conditions are favorable for a possible nor'easter situation on the 18th and 19th, as high pressure moves in near Greenland, which usually sets up these Greenland blocks. And guys, I mean, you can see it in the map, the oblong shape of the cold front that is caused by blocking up in this region here. High pressure blocking. Yes, there's low pressure off to the east of Greenland, but before that, that's not the case. So this is something to watch. Not a hurricane, but it doesn't really matter when it comes to these nor'easters. This is a pretty intense one and pretty large. I mean, it's bringing in some cold air after this, I can imagine. Let's back up a little bit. It looks like, if this map is true, Philadelphia, eastern Pennsylvania, the mid-Atlantic states, DC, Maryland, parts of Virginia. So the worst is going to be Pennsylvania. Syracuse, New York will be affected. The Albany, the capital region, New York City. Now, what does this mean? Heavy rain and gusty winds, and it also could bring some coastal flooding. And as this storm moves off, look at the cold air that's spilling into the United States in that pocket. It's almost like this area of colder air, this high pressure, gets trapped in a pocket of low pressure. This is a unique system. Something I definitely want to keep my eyes on here in the coming days. Temperatures really not dropping drastically, but you can see where the cold air does spill in. Let's go backwards here. Let's start with today, going into tonight. This is tomorrow. These are overnight lows for Saturday night into Sunday. 58 for the high in most parts in the Northeast. I mean, this is a typical, some colder air coming in through Montana once again. That heat trying to build back up in the south. As you can see, the contrast of the cooler air pushing that heat off to the Atlantic. Massive wave of cold air coming in from Alberta and BC. That will affect the Northwest. Again, some warmer temperatures try to build up by the 10th of October. The south is going to be beautiful. Folks out there in the Northwest, North Dakota, South Dakota, Northeast, Northwestern Nebraska, your daytime highs are going to be freezing or lower. Huge contrast in temperatures there, folks. More cold air to spill into the U.S. It's only not even the middle of October. Look at these overnight low temperatures. Good Lord. Freezing, folks. Northern Plains, Great Lake regions, you're next. I mean, 33 degrees on the Tennessee-Kentucky border. October 13th. Definitely below average. A little bit of stability here towards the 15th and 16th. And this is right around the time of this sort of what looks like a nor'easter right now. And you can see the areas where that northeaster is affecting the Northeast. The temperatures are cooler. As this storm is bringing a massive cold front behind it. I mean, clearly you can see the contrast, the difference in the temperatures. And this system is it's rotating back into the U.S., pulling in the colder air from Canada. And what I mean by that, folks, is this right here. So this nor'easter system, what it looks like right now, is rotating. It's a big low, and it's doing this right here. It's rotating. And it's such a big system that it's just pulling air down from Canada, the Arctic. I mean, these are some pretty cool temperatures, guys, for October 20th. Sunday, October 20th. We're not even in November yet. So that storm is going to be strong enough to bring in a lot of cool air. And you can almost, if you go fast enough on this, you can kind of see the swirl of the low. You could see the temperatures spinning here. So lots to watch here, folks. But again, right now, potentially, we're looking at a possible situation of what is normally seen in January and February. If this thing holds up, this could be some pretty dangerous flooding for some very heavily populated areas. And this will definitely be something we're going to continue to watch. Again, nor'easters usually happen January, February, March, April. That's a little unusual to see one this early, but Superstorm Sandy was, I don't know, I guess I have to revisit that and kind of remember what that was all about, but this could be something along those lines, if not stronger, especially if it holds up like this. So let's take a look at some of the weather around the world. As I mentioned earlier, Lorenzo is kind of usher in a lot more moisture to the European region, the UK, Ireland, Germany, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland, France, Poland. Everybody's going to have their fair shot of moisture here over the next several weeks. Probably more than others would like. Australia as well. Let's take a look at their weather. Mario, would you like to come over here and say hello to everybody? I guess Mari is not listening to me.
Oh wait, I have my headphones on.
That's all right.
Just making sure you didn't have any more audio issues, Deke.
Nope, I'm good.
trying to use I got a delay on my headphones. How you doing, Jake?
I'm fine. How's everybody in the chat?
It's a happy Friday. We're all in the chat. I don't know if Starman's still there. It was great seeing you, Starman. He says you have something to tell me about Starman. What's going on, Jake? Thanks for giving me props about that, Jake.
You called it.
About the satellite data. That was the first thing I said. And when Jake read off Dr. Roy Spencer's article today, I just lit up like a light bulb. I'm like, oh! Ooh! Anyway. Thank you, Sam, for the super chat. That is very, very kind of you. There's Thor actually showed up. He heard us from the other night. Everyone chanting his name. Thor, 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 Thor. So everyone is stoked. Thor's in there, Cheryl's in there. Matt made an appearance. And then we saw Starman. Let me see if there's any other mods I missed. Are you in the chat?
I'm good.
Okay, Thor says, Mari, tell Jake his brown stink. You're getting trolled.
All right,
chat,
Thor.
Jake.
Let's keep that. We'll wait until Wednesday night before we make that distinction. All right. I have a feeling we're gonna kick some 49er tail Monday night.
Boy.
So I see how it is. Thought we were friends, man.
Oh dear. Yeah. For the live show tomorrow. If you want to be a part of it, just sign up on Patreon or, go to the website. All the instructions are on there. I'll repost it if it's hard to find. I'm sorry that the website wasn't working for a couple days for the login. I have now fixed it. So, go me. Yay.
Like always.
And then, the live show, I think it would be interesting if we did broadcast it live and then just have the phone number private, I guess, on Patreon. We'll try it out. We're working with it, trying to see and find something that works. So let's do it. Mel sent me a good PDF that I saw probably a year and a half ago or more, and I forgot about it. And he sent it to me like, hey, have you seen this? And I want to go over it and use it as a talking point for our call-in show tomorrow. It's about grand solar minimum prepping. Sort of cool.
Okay.
So
don't let me forget. I need to try to get a hold of Ron, the guy that lives in the mountains out here, and what he does to keep warm in the winter and how he has everything positioned in his property perfectly to avoid any weather issues or any kind of concerns like that.
I got a lot of stuff. Roger Tallbloke, I gotta try to get something set up with him. He wanted to have a chat with us online. So, a lot of people are asking us to interview Tony Heller and Piers.
We'd love to.
Tony is hard to get a hold of, and he is so in the zone doing his own thing. I just think he is not going to want to talk to any other YouTuber. I don't know. I just don't think he goes there. I've never seen him do it. And with Piers, he's hit or miss. I don't know. He's one of our biggest fans on Twitter, but getting a hold of him is tough. So I don't know. I would be interested in talking to Piers about his views on galactic cosmic rays, because he completely thinks different than what most people do in the grand solar minimum community when it comes to GCR. So it would be interesting to sort of pick his brain and hear what he has to say. So I'll try to reach out. No promises, but we'll
never know.
There's a few other people, but I still have 2 interviews that I lost when my computer crashed that I'm trying to restore off my external hard drive.
We have a couple interviews.
Yeah, there's so much, so I don't want to add more things that I can't handle right now, because that computer crash really set me back big time. So I don't know. 8 o'clock tomorrow, Eastern Standard Time, for the live call-in show. If you want to listen. It should be on our channel. I'll have it scheduled, and then when it comes to the phone number, if you actually want to call in and talk to us, that's with the Patreon and all the links that we have in the description of this video pinned as a comment. And that's it, Jake, I think.
All right, well, thank you, Mari.
I could go on.
Appreciate
I could
your
sit
help.
here and talk for hours with you guys, but you know, everyone wants to go to bed, huh, Jake?
You know, we worked a lot of hours this week, so.
There was a joke about natural gas in the chat, and I talked about how I made chili.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Anyway.
Sorry about that, folks. All right, that's going to do it for us tonight on this Grand Solar Minimum News update. I'm sure I will try to put something together tomorrow afternoon. Mario will probably have a live chat going. Anyone has questions. We also will do the Patreon show. Again, join in, folks. $1 gets you a part of the call-in show. Doesn't have to be a fancy donation. $1 helps us all. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us tonight. Be safe out there until tomorrow night. Hopefully we'll hear from you. We will talk soon. Take care, guys.